after a phenomenal year in the COVID-shortened 2020 season, the future was looking bright for the Indiana Hoosiers in the coming years. However, it has not been up to expectation in Bloomington over the past couple of seasons, and Tom Allen may very well be a coach that finds himself on the hot seat this year, if not at the end of this upcoming season. So can Tom Allen overturn what has happened the past couple years in Bloomington and start to rebuild this Indiana team, or is Tom Allen going to find himself job searching at the end of the season? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams, which means I'm doing your favorite teams. Why don't you guys go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team's video gets uploaded. And hey, you can do more than that to help me support my channel. You're doing one right now by watching the video, and you guys can do more by liking, commenting, subscribing, and anything else you can think of to help support my channel. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's dive into Indiana football predictions here in 2023. Hey, you guys know how this works, but if you don't, let me remind you, we're going to go through a roster overview, take a look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, and then we're going to take a look game by game and give a good old preview and prediction for the Indiana Hoosiers. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you your 2023 Hoosiers football team. The quarterback room, you do lose Connor Bazelak, who was a former Missouri transfer and your starter last season. 2,312 yards, 13 touchdowns, 10 interceptions on 55% completion. And then you also lose Jack Tuttle, who went over to Michigan. Connor Bazelak transferred out. I forget which program he went to, though. So your starting quarterback for next year, by the looks of things, is going to be Dexter Williams. Now, by no means do these numbers pop off the screen at you, but 184 yards last year on only 38 pass attempts. That was good for 4.8 yards per pass, but did it on 34% completion percentage with 2 touchdowns and 2 picks, also while getting sacked 8 times last year. So when you take a look at this quarterback room, Dexter Williams, can he be a solid option? I think at his very best, yes. But quarterback play may definitely slow Indiana down coming into the 2023 season. In the running back room, you do lose Sean Shivers, who was your leading rusher last year with 592 yards and 6 touchdowns. However, you return your next 2 leading rushers, so second and third from last season, Josh Henderson, 398 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Jalen Lucas, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Hoosiers last season. Wide receiver room, you're going to lose Emery Simmons, who had 408 yards and 1 touchdown last year. However, good news, you do return a lot of nice pieces to this wide receiver room from last season, and as Cam Camper comes back, who had 598 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Donovan McCulley returns here as well, 169 yards and a touchdown from last season, while also transferring in E.J. Williams and DeCuse Carter, who are coming by way of different programs to this Indiana football team here as well. That's the one thing that Indiana did. While they did lose a lot of talent in the portal, as you'll see earlier, especially defensively, they did get some pretty solid pieces coming back for them as well, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. You do lose A.J. Barner in the tight end room. Pretty solid piece for Indiana over the past couple of seasons. However, leading the tight end room will be James Bamba and Aaron Steinfeld, going to be leading that tight end room. On the offensive line-wise, Luke Haggard and Parker Hanna are gone. However, you return Zach Carpenter and Mike Caddick while getting a transfer coming over in Max Longman to help bolster the offensive line. Defensively, a lot of talent leaves the defensive side of the ball, starting out with the defensive line. DeMarcus Elliott, James Head, and J.H. Tevis are all gone off of this team. All very good players for the Indiana Hoosiers. Elliott had 31 tackles, Head 22, and Tevis 22 there as well. So losing some solid production off the defensive line. However, you return Patrick Lewis, and then a lot of transfers come in. Philip Bliddy, Andre Carter, and Marcus Burris will be leading the defensive, or helping to lead the defensive line for the Hoosiers in 2023. Linebacking group, man, do you lose just a lot of talent here, as Cam Jones is gone, was your 6th leading tackler, I should say, last season. Desan McCullough is also gone, was a really good defensive line talent, was also tied for the team lead with 4 sacks, along with Alfred with Alfred Bryant, who was also gone off of this team, was also a top tackler for this team, as well as Bradley Jennings, who had 56 tackles last year. And all of those guys were top 10 tacklers for this team last year. That's a lot of talent gone out of this linebacker room. However, it's not your leading tackler, because your leading tackler does come back, and Aaron Casey, who had 85 tackles, 2 pass defended, and a sack and a half last season, as well as Miles Jackson. Those two guys will be helping to lead this linebacking unit, as well as a couple transfers in Jacob Magnum-Farrar and Linnell Carr, who come in as well. Now, defensive back group, again, a lot of talent leaves here. Tywan Mullen, probably their best defensive back over the past couple of years. 8 passes defended, 2 interceptions, was the 4th leading tackler last year. Jalen Williams, also a very good player, along with Bryant Fitzgerald and Devon Matthews, my apologies. I knew I was reading something wrong, who had 66 tackles and was your 3rd leading tackler last season. You do return Noah Pierre and Bryson Bonds, who will be some of the lead returners on this team. And then again, a lot of transfers come in. Jameer Johnson, Nicholas Toomer, and Jamison Kelly enter the program. So there's a lot of overall happening on the defensive side. There's a lot of questions I have about this offense and what it's going to look like here in 2023. There's just a lot of questions that I have for the Indiana Hoosiers. Tom Allen is, of course, that head coach. Your offensive coordinator is Walt Bell, defensive coordinator, and Chad Wilt. Let's predict Indiana football in 2023. Here is your 2023 Hoosier football schedule. Hey, any game that's underlined is a game the Hoosiers have at home. Any game in italics or the slanted text are going to be a game the Hoosiers have on the road. Neutral site games are, of course, listed accordingly. Any game in green is a game the Hoosiers will win easily. Any game in yellow is, hey, the other team puts up a fight, but Indiana is still able to win. And then, of course, red is a loss. So without further ado, let's predict Indiana in 2023, and they start with one of the nation's best, one of the favorites to win the national titles in the Ohio State Buckeyes, and they will overpower Indiana in pretty much every facet. Again, this Indiana team losing a lot of talent, and while they do have a lot of transfers coming in, I don't know if that's necessarily going to translate right away, and Ohio State will outclass them in every position. The Buckeyes win that one easily. Indiana State is an FCS level team that I see Indiana being able to win easily, although maybe the in-state team there in Indiana, the Sycamores, can give the Hoosiers a little bit of a run for their money. However, for the most part, I do see Indiana being able to go through, win that game, and build some momentum before their neutral site game in Indianapolis against the Louisville Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals are a team this year that I really think you have to look out for. With Jeff Brom, former Purdue head coach, going over there, there's a solid coaching staff there and a solid roster as well. Louisville's got a lot of great pieces, definitely a sleeper team in the ACC to possibly maybe even make the ACC championship, depending on what happens over there in that conference. And Louisville, I just see overall as being the much better team than Indiana, again, in pretty much every facet. Now, it'll be interesting to see what the Jeff Brom system over there is able to do in terms of where they sit amongst teams in the ACC. But as far as this game against Indiana right here, the Cardinals are a much better team than what the Hoosiers bring to the table in 2023. That is my belief. And so the Hoosiers, I do have dropping that game in week 3. However, I do have them bouncing back and being able to beat Akron in week 4. That's one of the worst teams in the FBS level. All apologies to my Zips fans out there. Love you guys. Again, was born in Ohio. I, again, have fond feelings for pretty much each and every Ohio team, but Akron is not going to beat Indiana, especially with this game in Bloomington there. Now, you have some road games here coming up next for Indiana on the road against Maryland, and Maryland is a sleeper team in the Big Ten. They are losing a lot of talent defensively, but hey, there's some good pieces on the defense there, which has been their weakness as of late, but especially when you look at this offense, Talia Tagovailoa is still there. He could be the best quarterback in the Big Ten, at least. You could definitely argue that sentence there that I just said. There's a lot of good pieces on the offensive side. They return their top 2 leading rushers. There are some great pieces in the wide receiver room for Maryland to work with. And Indiana defensively has to break in a lot of transfers. And again, with the game being on the road, I just don't see them having much luck against the Maryland Terrapins. Same conversation I just had with Ohio State comes here after the bye week in a road game against Michigan. Although, again, this one has the added bonus or negative, depending on the way you look at it, if you're an Indiana fan or not, on this one being on the road. While you do get Ohio State at home. You're still not beating the Buckeyes, and you're definitely not going to beat the Wolverines on the road in the Big House. Again, they outclass Indiana in pretty much every position, and they're my personal pick to win the national title in 2023. I think Michigan is going to be really stinking good, and Indiana, I do not think is going to have much luck against the Wolverines. But then you get Rutgers on the schedule, and this is more than a winnable game. So much so that I actually think Indiana is going to be able to beat the Scarlet Knights. Now, Rutgers has a lot of questions offensively, and Indiana is bringing in some pretty good talent defensively there to be able to replace what they had that is going to be lost off of that defensive unit, especially in the defensive back seven. They have just lost so much. There's going to be a lot of new players coming in there, a lot of guys that didn't have a lot of playing time who are with this program, a lot of guys who are brand new to this program this year. I just feel like Indiana's going to step up, make some plays. Maybe the offense gets clicking. It's a home game environment. And I see Indiana winning at least one Big Ten game this season, and I believe that is going to be the one that they are going to win, with Rutgers being a team that's still trying to build and figure themselves out. I believe the Hoosiers will win that game there in Week 8. However, it doesn't get any easier after that one, as you got to go on the road and play Penn State. Same conversation with Ohio State and Michigan. They're going to outclass Indiana in pretty much every position. Penn State's a legitimate playoff threat in 2023. Same thing with the Wisconsin Badgers. Luke Fickell, again, may need a year or two to figure out, but I believe this Badger team is going to be really, really good in 2023, and I think Luke Fickell is going to have tremendous rousing success in Madison this year. However, if you don't think that way, even so, Wisconsin immeasurably stacks up to maybe doubles the talent level that Indiana has on this team, and Wisconsin, I believe, will walk away victorious in that one. Then a road game against Illinois. Illinois got a major upgrade at the quarterback position with Luke Altmaier, and even though they do lose Chase Brown and some other pieces, there's some pretty solid talent in that wide receiver room for Luke Altmaier to throw. And that defense, while it does lose a lot in the secondary, I'm pretty high on what Illinois has back there. Maybe it doesn't translate to as many wins as Illini fans are thinking, but it's definitely going to translate to a win here in this one, especially since Indiana's got to go on the road. So that game, I do not see Indiana winning. However, there are a couple winnable games coming up on the schedule here for the Indiana Hoosiers, and that is this Michigan State game and this Purdue game here as well. We'll start with the Michigan State Spartans. Again, I do think Indiana is going to lose this game, but it is still a winnable game in my mind in some way, right? Michigan State, while they have a lot of very nice pieces on the defensive side, their offense has a lot of questions. Who's going to end up playing quarterback after Peyton Thorne transferred out? Who's going to step up in place of Jaden Reed and Keon Coleman being gone off of this team? And while you go ahead and take a look at, okay, Jalen Berger's at running back, that's a pretty good option there. Michigan State's still got some offensive questions. However, with that being said, I think they have too much talent defensively for this Indiana offense to handle, and that's why I do have the Spartans winning that game. And I also have Purdue winning that rivalry game there. Again, for me, is the talent level here with Indiana. Again, those are two winnable games at the end of the year, so best case scenario for me is 5-7. I don't necessarily see this team making a bowl game this year against maybe Louisville just doesn't really live up to standards. Maybe they pull off an upset against Wisconsin, but I really don't see them making a bowl game this year. Maybe Tom Allen's the right man for the job. I just see him needing some time to build. And if you want more of an explanation of why I have Purdue winning that game, I think there's a lot of good talent offensively. There's some very solid pieces defensively, and I think they're going to outwork Indiana, and it's a game Indiana's got to go play in Ross-Ade Stadium. So 3-9 is my prediction for the Hoosiers. Let me know yours in the comment section below. And as always, remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next one. Goodbye.